Hey everyone, Nubkeks here. In today's video, let's talk about the best DPS specs in Castle Nathria raiding right now in World of Warcraft. Of course, Mythic is coming out in 1 day if you're in North America, in 2 days if you're in Europe, and then so on for the rest of the world. But yeah, we already have a few balance changes. We're going to dive into the DPS rankings in a second here, but first of all, bear in mind, coming with this reset, there's already a set of balance changes. What you will see, though, when we go into those rankings, is that some of these changes are not enough. Some of these buffs are not enough. And also, we're going to see that there are some specs which are just completely destroying, which haven't been touched by any nerfs when you kind of would expect. So kind of expecting there may be more changes. I hope there is. I mean, this is a pretty substantial and official looking post, so I hope that this is not the extent of it, but we'll see. Let's just go through this very quick. It's actually very short, then we'll go to the rankings. So for tanks, all thread up by 10%. That's great. First big nerf is to Unholy Death Knight, their mastery, effectiveness of their mastery, which improves the damage of minions and shadow damage. Effectiveness reduced by 15%. So that's a fairly large chunk of a nerf to Unholy DK, which is fair because, as you'll see, they're doing very well on those damage meters, on top of bringing wonderful utility with the new anti-magic zone and grips and all of that. Blood Death Knight getting lots of damage increases. Havoc Demon Hunters, white Demon Hunters, I guess. They ran out of Demon Hunter purple, but they are getting all of their damage abilities increased by 5%. Assassination Rogue, similarly, all damage abilities increased by 5%. Resto Shaman getting nerfed. They are the best healer by a good chunk right now, makes sense. All healing down 4% and healing rain down an additional 10%. So that's like a 5 to 6% overall nerf. Destro Warlock's Chaos Bolt damage is being increased by 22%. And then finally for the Warriors, Arms Warrior seeing Mortal Strike increased by 20%, though the damage is going to be nerfed for PvP, so they're not too strong in PvP. I'm not sure if they are too strong in PvP compared to Sub Rogue, which is notably not nerfed here. You guys, let me know in the comments if you fought any Sub Rogues in PvP. I'm sure you had a great time. Slam rank 3 then is also increasing Slam's damage by 50%, up from 25%. So this is like your single target rage filler, rage spender filler. Additionally, Fury Warriors are seeing their damage increased by 5%. A lot of these buffs, though, they're not enough. Let's dive into this. These are the damage rankings, guys. These are from Heroic Castle Nathria. This is just a conglomerate of all the different bosses. We're smushing all the bosses together for an overall ranking. We're ranking it by the 99th percentile as well. These are the top 1% of players for each different spec, right? So we're comparing, the top 1% Balance Druid in Heroic with the top 1% Ellie Shaman in Heroic, for example, right? Now, okay, it's a relatively small-ish sample size. I mean, nonetheless, you can see we still have, like thousands of participants for most specs. There's a few like Survival Hunter, Assassination Rogue that only have a few hundred, but still, I think although it's a small-ish sample size, I think it's hopefully still big enough to give us a good idea. And of course, bearing in mind, we'll look at some of these individual bosses. Some are single target, some are AoE, and so on, and blah, blah, blah. Lots of different qualifiers, but still gives us a good overall view. When you look at this, I mean, straight away, you see some absolute jump out things. First of all, okay, Unholy Death Knight and Balance Druid are miles ahead of everyone else, absolutely jumping to the front. Now, as we looked at there at the start, Unholy Death Knight's getting a big nerf to their mastery, so we would expect them to come back in line, still going to be very strong, extremely strong, and still bringing that really good utility I was talking about, but they're not going to be as absurdly OP. Balance Druid, though, Balance Druid notably has not received any nerfs yet. They are also absolutely disgusting for Mythic Plus. I believe the top Mythic Plus teams are running compositions such as 1 Balance Druid and 2 Marksmanship Hunters. Marksmanship Hunter, the 3rd overall DPS spec for this top level of rating. But yeah, I would expect Balance Druid to get some nerfs. Now, some of this power is coming from larger AoE fights. So, for example, in let's say in Council of Blood, you're going to have lots of ads spawning around the room. And look at this. Like, this is really padding out those numbers, right? The Council of Blood fight. You have these grumpy waiters spawning around the edges. All of these waiters, they're really spread out. Starfall is just hitting all that stuff, doing loads of damage for free, which obviously other specs cannot quite replicate. So that does pad up those numbers somewhat. But nonetheless, Balance Druid is still absolutely doing tons of damage. Marksmanship Hunter, notably up there as well. Also surprising, no Hunter nerfs. They are absolutely disgusting in Mythic Plus as well. Just the damage these guys do is insane. I guess Blizzard is trying to figure out how to nerf these specs without destroying them, because let's face it, Balanced Druid and Marksmanship Hunter, they didn't really get to shine for most of BFA. They kind of were very much on the back burner for a lot of it. It's kind of nice to see them do well. Just maybe they're doing a little bit too well right now. Shadow Priest is doing super well. Affliction Warlock, fun one here. Windwalker Monks are actually popping off overall. Windwalker Monk is doing very well, so that's nice to see. Again, another spec that didn't see much love at all in rating in BFA. Will it last? We'll have to see. Outlaw Rogue also doing well. Funnily enough, Feral Druid are doing very well on damage, so that's definitely a good news for any Feral Druid players, in more casual guilds. Obviously in, the top end progress oriented guilds, this is irrelevant. This basically means that you are, the worst spec in the game. Why? Because Balanced Druid is going to be one of the best in most of these fights. Melee is very punishing. You're very limited on melee slots. Why would you play Feral Druid? Or why would a World First guild bring a Feral Druid when they can bring a Balanced Druid? Does Feral bring anything unique? Well, not particularly. So you just bring the Balanced Druid instead. That's kind of the issue there. Ellie Shaman is also doing fine. Arcane and Fire Mage are actually pretty neck and neck. So they're doing very similarly. I guess it's going to depend more so on the particular fight, whether their burst CDs align with certain phases in particular ways. But both of those mage specs seem to be doing strong. Ret Paladin in the mid. But yeah, we can definitely see some trends here. Let's look at some of those underperforming specs. Most of these specs in the middle are fine. I think going from Sub-Rogue up is pretty fine. We got the weaker specs down here. These are where some of those buffs are coming in, right? Fury Warrior and Assassination Rogue are miles behind everyone else. They are really struggling. They're getting buffed by 5%, guys. As you can see, though, you increase this line by 5%. They're still pretty much at the bottom. So I don't think, unless they get more buffs, I don't think Assassination Rogue or Fury Warrior are going to see much love. Now, I would expect, hopefully, more buffs coming soon. I think that Blizzard, they don't like to do large tuning all in one go. I feel like, generally speaking, plus 5% or minus 5% overall damage or overall healing is, generally speaking, as far as they'll go in a single tuning pass. They're not going to do like plus 20% overall damage. That's very, very rare. Might be warranted in some of these cases, though. Like, honestly, if you buffed Assassination Rogue or Fury Warrior by 20%, they still wouldn't be beating Balanced Druids. Let's be real. So that's a bit crazy. Destro Warlock, we may see some more play for them with the Chaos Bolt buff, certainly on some fights, like any 2-target cleave fights. So if we look at all the different bosses, Huntsman Altimore stands out. Now, that's obviously an early boss. It's not a very difficult boss compared to these later ones, but nonetheless, that is a 2-target fight. They're going to get good value out of cleaving those Chaos Bolts. You might actually see some Destro Warlock come in there. Havoc Demon Hunter also really, really low down. They are getting a 5% damage buff, which will bring them up into the okay range. Again, they're going to be a bit better on some AoE fights. I certainly think that there is a very real question, though, for top-end guilds. Will we simply bring a Vengeance Demon Hunter, which are doing very well on the tanking front? Will we bring a Vengeance Demon Hunter instead of bringing a Havoc in the melee spot and free up that melee spot? Yes, we're going to lose Darkness, but we'll get Chaos Brand from the Vengeance. And let's be honest, we're running some Death Knights now, and they bring Anti-Magic Zone, which sort of replaces Darkness in the raid CD rotation. So there you are. Survival Hunter and BM Hunter, again, not bad specs. Survival, again, in top end, I really would expect to see no play because it doesn't bring any extra utility. Yeah, I mean, you can just play Marksmanship instead. That's the issue. BM does have one advantage, and they have extreme mobility. So they actually are very good for certain jobs on certain fights, such as carrying the seeds on Artificer Zymox, the seeds in Phase 2. They're going to be excellent at that. Yeah, they're going to be able to, move around and do the soul pedestals on Sun King Salvation without losing much DPS compared to other specs. That sort of thing. They can go and open canisters on Lady and Nerva Darkvein. They're not necessarily essential, but they are very good at that job. All Frost Mages then, not doing well, guys. Frost Mage, out of the mage specs, this was one that was doing insanely well on the beta. They're doing very well still in Mythic Plus. They're still a good Mythic Plus spec. Obviously, pushing higher keys now in Mythic Plus. Tanks basically do as little tanking as possible, because tanks just die in Mythic Plus at the moment. If they high keys, if they try to tank, they just die. They spend most of their time running away from stuff. Frost Mage helps with that, and they also have got consistent AoE damage, so they're not too bad there, but in the raid, they're looking fairly weak. Again, they might see some love on Huntsman Ultimore because of 2-target cleave. We'll look at a couple of fights, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think they're going to struggle. Arms Warrior, likewise, with a bit of a buff to Mortal Strike, might be okay, but I think they're spending a lot of time doing Condemn. I think, unfortunately for Warriors, you are in a very real position, once again, like the Havoc Demon Hunter, where I think there's a real question of, do we simply not bring a warrior? You know, that's the thing. You're kind of going, okay, what is the damage we get from Battle Shout? Are we bringing, how many marksmanship hunters are we bringing? Will Battle Shout make up for the loss of damage, or should we just bring another marksmanship hunter instead of an arms warrior, you know, or bring another balance druid? That's the big question for those higher pushing guilds. If we go look, let's look at like let's look at a single target fight, right? So pure single target Hungering Destroyer. Let's have a look at that. If it loads, oh no. Foiled. Oh, don't do this to me, Warcraft vlogs. I don't want to have to edit the video. There we go. Okay, we're good. So in a pure single target fight, Hungering Destroyer. Now, there is some movement in this fight, which will punish melee specs, but you can see Unholy DK on the top. Again, they're being nerfed back, but Marksmanship Hunter, Shadow Priest, Balance Druid, Feral Druid, though again, you know, Balance Druid outshadows them. Affliction Warlocks, even Outlaw Rogues doing really well. Very surprising there. Outlaw Rogues on pure single target, out-damaging the sub-rogues so far. That's intriguing. But yeah, we've got this stuff going on, you know, down the bottom, Destro, Havoc, Fury, Survival Hunter, Frost DK, Frost Mage, Arms Warrior. Yeah, you get the idea right there. Like, poor old Assassination Rogue is losing to Outlaw Rogue in single target. You know, that's going to feel pretty bad. If we look at Huntsman Ultimore, which is more of a 2-target cleave fight, you can actually see interesting Arcane Mage. I guess one of the things here is that you could funnel lots of damage into the ads. I'm not sure if that is replicated in Warcraft logs. Let me see, where's Destruction Warlock? They're still lagging pretty far behind. We'll have to see. Frost Mage does kind of jump up a bit, though not as much as that Arcane Mage. Balance Druid still near the top as well. In a massive AoE fight like Sun King Salvation, you can see the Balance Druid just way ahead. Windwalker Monks actually coming in big, and even Arcane Mage just doing super well. That's really interesting that Arcane Mage is pulling up well on those AoE pulls. Unholy, of course, still there. Marksmanship Hunter, even the Ret Paladin, a spec I haven't talked about yet today, they are coming in pretty big on Sun King Salvation. Some of that burst damage, some of that AoE, pretty cool, and good utility there as well. You know, de-shielding off an Ember Blast, that's a very valuable thing to bring, which not many of the other melee specs can bring. But yeah, I think you get sort of the rough idea. If we go, let's look at like Sludge Fist, which is the big DPS wall boss. Balance Druid absolutely pumping. Big thing about Sludge Fist is he does get vulnerability phases about 1 minute, you know, I think 1 minute 10, 2 minute 20, 330, 440, something like that. I don't think it's quite that. They're not that spaced out, maybe like 1, 2, 3, and 4 minutes. But yeah, certain specs are doing super well. Poor old Fury and Assassinate. Like, this is just miserable down here. This looks like a fight where you're really not probably going to bring any melee at all. Like, let's look what, like, Unholy DK, you probably bring maybe Unholy DK or two, could actually be good. AMZ, again, going to help with some of that damage reduction. So that does have some value, though I don't think you can stack up on Sludge Fist Mythic, so they may fall off there as well. Feral Druid is the next best melee, and again, you're going to be bringing balance instead. Fire Mage, not Fire Mage, that's not a melee. Ret Paladin, though. Enhancement Shaman. We'll see. They might be too squishy, but yeah. And then finally, looking at, let's say, Castle Nathria, the final boss, how are specs looking there? You can see that not all specs are represented. Not everyone has killed this. You can see the numbers of specs they've killed are very small here for Castle Nathria. We don't have many logs. Obviously, a lot of the people that have killed are private logging because they're pushing for World First. They want to keep their strats under wrap. But from the very limited info that we do have, we can see Unholy Death Knight is absolutely destroying. Balance Druid doing very well. Windwalker up there too. And Affliction Warlock also good. Fire Mage. Yeah, so, you know, the sort of same crew. Again, Ret Paladin, you know, the Dark Horse, always that Dark Horse spec. I think Ret Paladin has been in every single World First kill in, apart from Pieces kill in Crucible of Storms. They didn't have a Ret Paladin for that, but I think they were in every other World First kill in BFA, but it's a spec that doesn't get too much attention, too much love. But yeah, I think that's certainly very interesting, guys. There you go. They are the overall DPS. Let me know what you think. Like I said, is that balance tuning enough? I don't think so. If you are, you know, a warrior, I think you're feeling pretty bad right now. You know, you're going to feel pretty bad. If you're a Frost Mage, you're definitely feeling, I think, pretty bad. Yeah, lots of melee specs, honestly, are going to struggle quite a bit. You know, Windwalker coming through, Unholy DK coming through, but yeah, let me know what you're thinking. How is your spec doing? Have you been having a good time in Castle Nathria? We'll see. What other balance changes do you think should come in? Again, for me, I would like to see more buffs to like Warriors need love. Warriors need some love. Havoc Demon Hunter needs some love. You know, these guys at the bottom, the poor old Assassination Rogue needs some love. Lots of these lower specs, they need more buffs. 5% is not enough. They need like, they could 10%, 20%. They could take it. And again, I think Balanced Druid, Hunter. Let's be honest. I don't want Shadow Priest to be nerfed because I'm playing Shadow, but legitimately Shadow Priest potentially could see a small little nerf here, and that would make sense as well. Certainly these two, Balanced Druid and are certainly probably a bit too strong when you also consider their strength in Mythic Plus. There are some of my thoughts on what else should probably change going into Mythic Week. We'll see if it does, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you found it interesting, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.